Welcome to the Voices That Propel Us, stories of justice, action, and community, a space where justice meets action and community voices rise. Each episode, we bring you stories from the front lines, changemakers, disruptors, and everyday heroes who are building a more just, equitable, and liberated world. This is more than a podcast. It's a call to listen, learn, and move together. You were just listening to music from the incredibly talented Stephen Kong. You can find him on Spotify and Bandcamp. Today we have with us Russell Van Brocklen. Russell is a dyslexia researcher and creator of the writing method, a neuroscience-based approach that helps struggling students become confident writers. His work, supported by the New York State Senate and the SUNY Research Foundation, has helped students make significant gains in writing fluency through simple, science-backed routines. He now teaches parents and educators practical strategies to unlock the strengths of neurodiverse learners. Well, hello. Thank you for being here. I'm really excited to have you today. I think you do really important work and, just the awareness of the, issues that you address, I think is really important. But how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to hear more about the work that you do. So just to start off, your work sits at the intersection of neuroscience, justice, and youth empowerment. So what would you say that were early experiences or personal stories that helped to shape your understanding of educational inequity?
Well, I'm the poster child of it.
Yeah. Cool.
You're going to be kind of shocked by this one.
Okay.
So it was the late 90s. I was finishing up college and I wanted to know how laws were made. I didn't want some class. I wanted to know.
Yeah.
So I had this ridiculous idea of being severely dyslexic that I signed up for the New York State Assembly internship program.
Okay.
And I showed up there after I was accepted and I say, here's my neuropsychological evaluation. I have a first grade reading and writing ability.
Okay.
And the director kind of freaked. He said, this won't work because typically you have the assembly member, the chief of staff, who most likely was an intern a year or two before, and the intern. That's it.
Okay.
So the director went up to the speaker's office and the speaker said, listen, we've accepted this kid. You're going to make this work. We're not sending him away because he's dyslexic. So they got a committee together and they came up with a pretty extreme solution. Being around your peers is a huge part of the program. They literally pulled me out of the legislative office building and put me in the Capitol. In the Majority Leaders Program and Council's office, the office that literally ran the assembly day to day. They had no idea what to do with an undergrad. They treated me like a grad student, which was fantastic because that's a real staff position.
Yeah.
I found out why they put me there. There are 3 administrative assistants that could help with my horrendous writing.
Okay.
So that went great. Then for the academic portion, you remember those big papers you had to do in college?
Right.
I can't do them. So the standard accommodation, I would be giving hours-long presentations and then a long Q&A. At the end of all of this, they recommended 15 credits of A-.
Okay.
Okay. Now remember, these accommodations were massive and they were created by a committee from the New York State Legislature. Okay. So then I take my 15 credits of A- recommendation back to our state flagship campus. It's the State University of New York Center at Buffalo, to the political science department. And I go, here. They don't have to accept it. They normally do. They can modify it.
Yeah.
They didn't like the accommodations the government itself came up with. So guess what they modified my grade to?
Wait, no, what happened?
Well, they lowered it. Guess how much?
I don't know. I'm curious to hear about it.
They flunked me.
Really?
They gave me 15 credits of F.
Wow.
Do you have any idea what that does to a transcript?
No, that's devastating.
Exactly.
Wow.
So at the end, because I was in the Majority Leaders Program and Council's office, because I worked nights, because I worked weekends, because I volunteered so much, I had access to the people that literally ran the assembly day to day.
Okay.
That gave me access to being a lobbyist, I was offered senior government positions way beyond what I was supposed to because of that position. That's what I was going to do. I was supposed to be a bureaucrat for the state government.
Okay.
But I turned all of that down because I was tired of the discrimination. So I went to my professors that I still liked. I said, where do I force myself to learn to read and write so I can teach other dyslexics in grad school? They said, law school.
Okay.
Okay.
Wow.
Where they read and write more than anybody, and I'm at the first grade level. So I go to law school.
Okay.
For the first grade reading ability.
Yeah.
So my second day of contracts, I'm seeing a dyslexic professor, Professor Warner. He's a dyslexic professor for 30 years. He calls on me. What they do is they use the Socratic method. They ask you questions that you can't answer to embarrass you until you can get used to the system, acclimate to it.
Okay.
He called on me. My classmates just looked down. They're like, I'm the next victim.
Yeah.
But as a dyslexic, I didn't respond as a student. I responded as his equal.
Okay.
He asked me questions. I answered as his equal for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
At the end of that, he said, Russell, you couldn't be any more correct. I have to move on to the next case in the interest of time. So what happened is I learned to read within a month. I learned to write within a couple of years. I solved law school in that 15-minute discussion.
Okay.
And what I found about later is dyslexics, when we go to grad school, we own the place day one or soon thereafter. Because here's what's going on. This is the top book on dyslexia.
Okay.
It's called Overcoming Dyslexia by Sally Shaywitz. This is the second edition. She's a doctor from Yale.
Okay.
That's dyslexia. Do you see how the back part of your brain has this massive neural activity?
Right. Right.
Do you see how mine has next to nothing? Now, do you see how the front part of my brain has about 2.5 times the neural activity?
Right.
Okay. I'm going to really oversimplify massive neuroscience to the point where professors are going to go crazy. This is the K through high school part of the brain. This is grad school. When we go to grad school, it's in our specialty. We're very good at narrow areas. That's why we dominate it. All right. So what I did is I took that and then I went back to the New York State Senate and I said, I want you to fund my dyslexic research project, which they don't do. So they sent me to the education department. I went through professors, things for years until eventually I got it approved. Then I went to my old high school, Averill Park Central School District, right outside of Albany, New York. And I said, I want to help students like me. So I took, we cheated. We only dealt with highly motivated, highly intelligent dyslexic students. You went to Berkeley. If they weren't dyslexic, that's where they would have went.
Okay.
They were very intelligent, very motivated. We started them off one class period a day for the school year. We used the graduate records exam analytical writing assessment. We gave a test for grad students to kids writing at the middle school level. How do you think they did?
Yeah, it sounds like they
0 percentile mostly.
Oh, really? 0?
Well, they have middle school writing skills, and this is a test for entering graduate school writing ability.
Right.
So then, for about 180 classes, they ended up scoring in the 30th to 70th percentile of entering grad students. Some were above average. They all went on to college. They had the writing skills of college graduates before they started. They all graduated GPAs of 2.5 to 3.6. Cost to New York State of under $900 a kid. We were 3 times more successful than the best dyslexic college at the time for less than 1% of the cost. That's how I got started.
Okay. Wow. No, thank you. That's so wonderful. Thank you for sharing that journey. And, something that I'm really curious about too. So you describe your approach as word analysis first. So for listeners who are unfamiliar with this, can you walk us through what happens in the brain when a dyslexic student slows down at the word level? So I know that you shared with it a little right now.
Sure. Let's go through the science again.
Okay.
All right. You see how, again, the back part of the dyslexic brain, yours is going crazy with activity and the dyslectic's next to nothing?
Right.
That's where reading's supposed to happen.
Okay.
It doesn't. It goes to the front part of the brain. Okay? And that becomes 2.5 times overactive. So according to Yale, It's word analysis followed by articulation.
Okay.
So, do you know any dyslexic kids?
Not that I could think of right now off the top of my head.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how you can apply the biggest issue that I tend to get with parents.
Okay.
It's elementary school kids, and they're saying their kids are writing randomly placed misspelled words, essentially.
Okay.
They don't know where to start. The school doesn't know where to start. They're falling further behind. They're getting frustrated, all craziness.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to show you how to fix that in about 10 minutes.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yes.
All right. So what we're going to do is remember the front part of the brain is word analysis followed by articulation. We're going to take reading and writing from the back part of the brain and move it to the front part.
Okay.
Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to tell you about a student that I use for these examples. Her name is Sarah.
Okay.
She was 10 years old. She was reading and writing at the second grade level. And her favorite activity in the world is swimming. She was on the swim team. She got in the pool every chance she could get. So what we're going to do is we're going to, assuming you're teaching Sarah, you're going to use a laptop computer with a real keyboard, not an iPad, not an iPhone, certainly not handwriting. You're going to type out hero +, what are we talking about? And she's going to copy that. That's fine. Professor James Collins, Strategies for Struggling Writers, Default Writing Strategy of Copying. So now we have hero +, what are we talking about? We are going to swap out hero for Sarah. Sarah +, what are we talking about? Then we're going to have you go to a list of 10 things she really, really likes and 10 things she really, really dislikes. We're going to go to the top of the list, the thing she loves the most, which is swimming. So we got Sarah +, what are we talking about? We're going to swap out what are we talking about for Sarah + swimming.
Okay.
See how we got there?
Right.
Okay. So we swapped out what are we talking about with the first thing on her list, which was swimming. So we got Sarah + what are we talking about? Swapping out what are we talking about for swimming? Sarah + swimming. Okay.
Okay.
Now, I'm going to try to fool you with two of the simplest questions you will ever be asked.
Okay.
If you follow these exactly, this works. If not, it doesn't. And this is where people normally have an epiphany on what dyslexia really is. Remember, two of the simplest questions you will ever be asked.
Okay.
Do you think I can fool you?
No, yeah, I believe you. I'm curious to see what it is, though.
Okay, here's where it is.
Okay.
We got Sarah + swimming.
Uh-huh.
We need to swap out the + for a word.
Okay.
So Sarah + swimming, we got to swap out the + for a word. Here's my question.
Okay.
Does Sarah like or dislike swimming?
I feel like it's like, but I'm just wondering.
Yes, you answered it correctly.
Okay.
So we got
no,
Sarah.
I'm just wondering if they're, just because
I told you these are the two simplest questions ever.
Okay.
So we got, so you said like.
Uh-huh.
Now give me the sentence. That's the second question.
Sarah likes swimming.
But that's not what I asked. Do I have you nice and thoroughly confused?
Yeah, I don't know how. What would the sentence be, though?
It's well, we have Sarah. We have Sarah + swimming. We have to swap out the + for like or dislike. You said like, which is correct.
Right.
Now you need to simply make the 3-word sentence.
Yeah, so Sarah likes swimming.
But that's not correct.
No, I'm wondering why isn't it, though? I think that's where I'm stuck right now.
Do I have you thoroughly confused?
Yes.
I asked, does Sarah like or dislike swimming? As an educated person, you do what almost every educated person does. You added the S to like to make it a proper sentence. Sarah's dyslexic.
Okay.
Sarah's dyslexic. She doesn't know how to add the S.
Oh, okay.
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 She doesn't know, so she would have said Sarah likes swimming.
Uh-huh.
We have to get her to add the S.
Okay.
Okay. You automatically corrected it because the back part of your brain with that massive neuroactivity, that's what you know how to do. Sarah's got nothing going on back there. We got to bring it forward to get it to work.
No, I
okay. So the whole point is, how do we get her to add the S? Now, if you were, I want you to imagine your niece was like Sarah, way behind. She's coming home crying every day from school. You got $10 million in the bank, and the school came to you. I'm going to give you an example of the Windward School in New York City. They say, if you give us Sarah for 4 to 5 years. We're $75,000 a year plus other stuff.
Okay.
We have a 98% success rate where if she's smart enough, we would prepare her for Berkeley or Stanford or Harvard. Are you going to spend the money to save her? You got $10 million in the bank.
If that money can help her like be successful.
Yes, they've been doing this for decades. Okay, how they do it is they use an approach that hasn't changed much since the 1950s.
Okay.
They use an Orton Gillingham multi-sensory structured language approach. They see it, touch it, hear it, and it takes, if you want to become certified, it'd be 2 years and $11,000, and you would be taking forever. Most people don't have hundreds of thousands sitting in the bank. So here's how your audience can do this tonight. We're going to use modern neuroscience. So we're going to pull things forward and use the front part of the brain. So we're going to use word analysis followed by articulation. So here's the first thing we're going to do with word analysis. Remember how I said like or dislike? Do you see how that's a simple form of word analysis? Here's how we get Sarah to correct this. I asked Sarah, read what you wrote out loud. Sarah likes swimming. I say, Sarah, does that sound generally correct? She's going to say no. And I'm going to say, Sarah, fix it. Sarah likes swimming. Because she said the way it sounded. All right. Now, well, then we're going to go because and then reason one. Do you see how reasons are a simple form of articulation? So what we're doing with word analysis followed by articulation, we're taking the back part of the brain where nothing's going on, and we're going to the front part of the brain where we have 2.5 times the neural activity. Okay. So give me a simple reason why a 10-year-old girl would like to swim.
It helps her cool down in the summer.
It helps her cool down the summer. Sarah likes swimming because it helps her cool down during the summer. Now, do you see how we have a whole mess of misspelled words?
Okay.
Here's how we fix that.
Okay.
We tell Sarah to drop a period, to read what she wrote out loud, and does it sound generally correct? Forget about the spelling. She does. Now that got rid of those nasty grammar errors. Teachers don't know what to do with nasty grammar errors generally. They can do simple to mild ones, but not the nasty stuff. We just got rid of that. Then we say, Sarah, for each time you misspell a word, you got to retype everything.
Oh, wow.
All right. Okay. That's why we're using a real keyboard. And she's going to say, I'm not going to make that mistake. And she keeps doing it again and again. Each time she says, I'm not going to make the mistake and makes it, she's going to concentrate harder and harder. And that's where the magic happens. Around 9 to 13 times, you can see sweat coming down her forehead.
Okay.
She will eventually get this correct. Sometimes it's 10, sometimes it's 20 times the first time. Then we're going to have her get everything correct for reason one.
Okay.
For Sarah likes swimming, Sarah dislikes this, until that's correct. Then Sarah likes swimming, Sarah likes the next thing on her list because reason one. We have her do the reason ones, 10 likes, 10 dislikes, until that's spelled correct. Then reason one and reason two. Then reason one, reason two, and reason three. What we've just done is taken her writing from probably kindergarten to beginning first grade level to the end of second, beginning third grade level.
Okay.
Here's a little hint. If you can write it, you can read it. Your audience needs to understand this. If you can write a word, you can read it. Okay? So the reading also improves. Now, but I noticed that when I started doing this, I can't get the kids to do anything.
Yeah.
And then I found out I went back to what I did in law school, and I found out if you like political science, you're going to like law because that's literally what it is. Dyslexics are academic specialists, not generalists. Okay. So do you remember in school how you would just go through all these different subjects? You couldn't really specialize until the end of college?
Right.
Okay. So for dyslexics, we got to focus on our speciality. Now, I'm going to tell you about my most successful elementary school kid ever. I never saw this before, Casey. I will never see this again. But it's to illustrate just how important the speciality is.
Yeah.
So Casey was 10 years old, reading at the second grade level, and she was very interested in Theodore Roosevelt. So I assigned her this.
Okay.
The Rise of Theodore Roosevelt. Oh, 900 Okay, this is 10th grade to first year college level, depending on who you ask. It's won the Pulitzer.
Okay.
She's reading at the second grade level.
Uh-huh.
So Casey insisted on doing reading first. So I said, okay, Casey, do 10, 20-minute sessions with your mom, a couple times a week, and we'll see. I didn't know Casey. She essentially locked herself in a room for 3 hours a night for 6 months.
Right.
At the end of that, she jumped 8 grade levels in 6 months. I worked with her for 15 minutes a week.
Wow.
Okay? Think about that. She essentially jumped 8 grade levels on her own in 6 months.
Wow.
Her mom wanted to know, is that just for that book? So I, on her mom's instructions, I gave her another book called this, Walt Disney, The Triumph of the American Imagination.
Okay.
All 1,000 pages of it. Have you ever been to Disneyland or Disney World?
Yes, I have.
Have you walked into Main Street USA and felt the Disney magic?
Yeah, definitely.
That's based on 2 universal themes. The first one is easy to find. The second one took Casey 3 months. It typically takes students a year or 2. And then they're reading. All right. And then here's why I'm spending so much time on this with her mom on the phone, because I knew she'd get a kick out of it. I said, Casey, what did you think of Walt Disney? I hated it. She, with permission, then went about destroying her book. This is why I spent so much time on this story. I asked Casey, when we moved from a book that you really loved to one that you couldn't stand, how much did your motivation drop? The most motivated kid I ever worked with. She said about 50%. For most typical students, you're down 75 to 90%.
Okay.
And if you're dealing with an ADHD kid who you can't do anything, get them in their specialty, you can't pull them away.
Okay.
So what I'm saying is, if you're dealing with a dyslexic kid, ADD or ADHD, because the treatment's the same, if you pull them outside of their specialty until you get them to grade level, you're down typically 75 to 90% motivation-wise. The program's not going to work or do so very inefficiently. So we have to focus on their speciality. Next, this is one thing I learned from dyslexic professors. I want you to think back when you were 14. If your teacher came to you and asked, what effect did Martin Luther King's famous I Have a Dream speech have on the American Civil Rights Movement in the 1960s? Go write a paper. You could just go write the paper, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you notice how most of your things in school, they taught you the big picture and then eventually they got to the details?
Yeah, like you start with your general ed and then get into your major.
Yeah, but any course you took, big picture, and then eventually, for a dyslexic, that's like grabbing fog. We're horrible at it. We need to ask because the brain is the front part of the brain is so massively overactive. If you ask a dyslexic person, ADD or ADHD, in your speciality, do you have ideas flying around your head at light speed, but with little to no organization? They're going to say yes.
Okay.
So then what we have to do is we have to force the brain to organize itself by using writing as a measurable output.
Yeah.
Again, we have to force the brain to organize itself by using writing as a measurable output.
Okay.
So what we do is we start from a very specific point and then go out. So imagine we asked another question. What personally compelled Martin Luther King to want to give his famous speech?
Okay.
We go to his biography, we find out. That answer gives us a question, which gives us an answer, which gives us a question, gives us an answer. That forces the brain to organize itself by using writing as a measurable output. So when you're working with dyslexics, we focus on their speciality until they're at grade level, then we can put them back into school. We focus from the specific to the general, word analysis followed by articulation. How effective is this? I could never tell people because my clients want privacy with dyslexia. And I don't violate that. But then in December of 2024, I met Kimberly. She's a religious homeschooling mom. She reads 4 other brothers and sisters to read properly using traditional methods.
Okay.
But she couldn't work with, she failed with it. And she was very frustrated. So was Reed. Reed was 10 years old in 5th grade. She just spent $700 having the state of Ohio test him.
Okay.
He was reading at the 11th percentile and writing at the 4th percentile. She employed this process working with him for an hour and a half a week for 5.5 months. Most parents do a couple of 10 to 15 minute sessions a week, so you can figure out how long it's going to be compared to this. I worked with her for half an hour a week.
Okay.
I'm not going to give you the data for when he finished that summer at the end of school year. What I'm going to give you is the data later on in August, because in the summer, his friends came to him and said, Reed, we want you in school for social reasons, for lunch, for classes. So he enrolled in public school in August of 2025.
Okay.
Reed's reading jumped from the 11th. Remember, while I'm giving you this data, he's in public school. Mom's not within miles of it. This is better data. His reading went from the 11th percentile to the 64th.
Wow.
His writing went from the 4th percentile to the 65th. His grammar jumped to the 97th percentile from horrible. Okay. He's now in gen ed classes, not special ed, getting A's and B's because his mother literally taught him 7 times faster than the school could and spent less than half the time.
Wow. No.
That's how effective this is. And she's a homeschooling mom with some college.
Yeah, no, I love that. And, I also love how you pointed out earlier that, people with dyslexia, they're like completely capable of achieving what other people can, going to these elite universities and everything. But, what kind of misconceptions, myths, or stereotypes do you think that people have about dyslexia, and how are you working to challenge those?
Well, I want you to think about do you ever watch Shark Tank?
Yes, sometimes.
Okay.
Right.
Now, there are 6 sharks. Dyslexia really makes up it's the most severe form of reading and writing.
Okay.
It generally makes up 5 to 10% of the population. Guess how many of the 6 sharks are dyslexic?
So they actually are? No, I didn't know that.
Half of them
really
are dyslexic.
Wow.
Damon, Barbara, and Mr. Wonderful.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that any of them were actually.
Yes, half of them.
Wow,
So
okay.
dyslexics really make up around 5-10% of the population.
Okay.
Okay. And half the sharks are dyslexic. So you're going to find that all over the place. So in grad school, as I said, we own the place in day one because that's our speciality. So I want you to imagine you go into grad school and you walk in and you have an idea right away or soon thereafter that's publishable, that's fundable. Can you see how you can work with a typical person who will be happy to do all the work to get their name on the paper? Okay. Because if you're in a PhD program, how do you design a study? How do you do the work? Well, you just learn that. Dyslexics find learning that very difficult. Coming up with a groundbreaking idea, we do that all the time. When I had to do mine, I was sent to Professor James Collins, who got $1.5 million grant from the U.S. Education Department. He's a full professor at Buffalo. I was told it was going to take years to get his approval. I had it in less than 2 weeks. Think about it, not years, less than 2 weeks. He gave me the approval. 6 months later, I got funded by the university for $15,000. A couple of years later, I got funded by the New York State Center for a multi-year study, which we discussed at the beginning. Dyslexia is really unfair in grad school. It's a real detriment until you get to grad school. So the biggest misconception that people have with dyslexia is they think that it's a reading disorder. It's not. That's a symptom. Like when you have a cold, you have a runny nose. It's a symptom. The real problem is the mess in your chest. So when I go and I teach writing, if you can write it, you can read it. I teach them how to organize their things. So let me give you an example.
Okay.
After Reed finished that, the next thing we had him work on, I taught him how to do the most basic body paragraphs ever. So I want you to imagine we're doing something in literature, something in English class. We have a hero. Hero wants to do something. So we pick the most important word of what the hero wants to do. That's our base universal theme. It's very broad. Then we go to the thesaurus. I have Reed type out each word and each definite. Because if you want to use word analysis, if you don't know what the word means, how can you use word analysis? You can't. So I will literally have him go to all the synonyms. He'll do 5, 10, the whole level, multiple levels, depending on what his mom wants. He will type out the word, go to Merriam-Webster's online dictionary. You don't copy and paste. You don't copy and paste. You have to pick your definition and type it out.
Right.
Once you type out a word and its definition, how many times do you need to do that until you know it permanently?
Oh,
5 times,
permanently.
10 times, 15?
No, probably less. Yeah, I think if it's something that I know I'd need to know, I'd say like less than like five, probably.
Okay.
'Cause I think,
Maybe it
yeah,
just, yeah.
maybe if I need to memorize the definition, probably more than that. But if I just need like a general idea of what this
No,
word
you need to
is.
know it permanently.
Okay. Yeah, I would still say maybe around that time, like maybe about five or so.
Yeah. A
Yeah.
dyslexic might be 10, 20. I don't know, it's some number. So I
Okay.
have them type out the word and type out the definition.
Hmm.
Eventually, over the course of months, they're going to know that word so well that I have them do this at 10 or 11. By the time they're
Okay.
16 or 17 applying for the SAT or ACT, the
Hmm.
verbal sections are just vocabulary tests. They remember 70 to 80% of the definitions 5 years later. They
Okay.
don't need to learn. They already know them.
Oh,
So
wow.
they do that, and then we get the best word that matches in their head.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Now that's a very specific universal theme, so they can do that. Then they pick their optimum villain, a person or a concept,
Hmm.
and then we put that into a basic sentence. Do you see how that's an advanced form of word analysis?
Hmm.
Then we go because I say, give me three really good reasons.
Okay.
Really good. That's an advanced form of articulation.
Hmm.
For each reason, I have that reduced to a simple universal theme.
Hmm.
Then they go and they find a quote, one at the beginning of the story, one at the end of the story, one sentence quote that deals with that universal theme,
Hmm.
and we put that together. So you remember when you were learning how to do body paragraphs,
Hmm.
that's your data. Two quotes is the data.
Right.
We then use those two quotes to form to come up with their topic sentence.
Okay.
Now, do you remember that when you were writing your papers at Berkeley,
Hmm.
that you would have your topic sentence and then your data, and it didn't seem to flow very well?
Right.
Have you ever heard of how to apply a warrant to a body paragraph?
No, I don't think so.
Very few people outside of PhD students know what a warrant is.
Right.
It's
What do you mean
answering
by
a
that?
how and why question to
Okay.
connect your topic sentence with your data.
Hmm.
Okay. So think
Okay.
about that. Then we show the kids how to do a warrant. So
Okay.
now we have, because both quotes are based on the same universal theme, we just
Hmm.
use one warrant. We have the topic sentence, the warrant, the two quotes, and then
Okay.
a few other things. When a university professor sees a paragraph written with a warrant, they
Hmm.
automatically think it's college level.
Okay.
And we're teaching that to seventh graders.
Wow. Oh, that's
So I
wonderful.
want you to imagine this. Do you
Hmm.
have any siblings?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And I assume because you went to Berkeley, you were fighting to be valedictorian and came pretty close?
No, actually, that wasn't an issue. Not with my family.
No, I mean, I'm just saying with you, were you get close to being valedictorian right up at the top of your high school class?
In high school, well, the thing is, I went to a really unique high school. It was a really small high school, so I feel like, yeah, it was very project based. So, yeah, I would
Oh,
say
okay. It
like a lot
wasn't
of
the
people,
normal.
yeah,
Okay.
a lot of people I feel like were very high achievers, went to go off in great colleges and stuff. But,
Okay. So,
yeah.
so I want you to imagine a typical high school, because typically
Hmm.
with these dyslexic kids, their brothers and sisters are very high achieving. Now
Okay.
imagine they're a senior in AP English,
Hmm.
and the younger brother or sister's dyslexic in seventh grade using warrants, and
Okay.
the university professors think that their paragraphs are technically more advanced
Right.
than the
Right.
EP English high school kid who always
Hmm.
writes better flow, just better word choice, just
Hmm.
better overall. But because the warrant is added, it's technically more advanced for the middle school kid.
Right.
Drives the AP siblings crazy.
Okay.
What do you mean my dyslexic kid brother knows how to write better than I?
Yeah.
Drives them nuts. It's
Yeah.
beautiful.
No,
But
that's
I just
wonderful.
explained to you there just a more advanced. That's a more advanced version of context. I use the craft of research, context problem solution. I just
Uh-huh.
explained to you the general advanced form of context.
Okay.
Okay, so we're teaching. Remember, you went to Berkeley. You did well.
Hmm.
I'm teaching seventh graders
Hmm.
to apply an advanced form of writing you've never heard of.
Right. No,
That's
that's
how
wonderful.
advanced we
Yeah.
teach these kids. Nothing
Yeah.
against your education at Berkeley. People
Hmm.
outside of doctoral students generally just don't know what this is. I've
Right.
met,
Right.
I did 157 podcasts last year, I
Okay.
met two people with master's degrees with all the conferences that I knew of that
Okay.
knew what a warrant was with a master's level. Everybody else had no clue.
Right. No, I feel
That's
like
how
we didn't
advanced we
even,
teach.
yeah, they didn't
Yeah.
teach that. I don't remember them even like telling us about
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
And it's right there in the craft of research. So this,
Uh-huh.
just so people know what that is, that's a book from the University of Chicago that came out in 1995
Okay.
that has since sold over 1 million copies that
Hmm.
teach PhD students how to write doctoral dissertations.
Okay.
I dropped context to 9-year-olds.
Wow.
Okay.
That's really cool.
I do a problem statement starting in 8th grade and a solution starting in 10th.
No, that's wonderful. No, I think when you put it that way too, it is something that like makes sense. And I'm like, I wonder why they didn't, teach that more. But I think that's wonderful that you're teaching the students that. And something that I'm wondering too, like, do you notice any structural barriers for people to be able to access these resources and support that they need? For example, like class or race, have you seen anything like being
Oh,
like structural barriers for people?
the entire our K through college system is not trying to make it hell on neurodiverse.
Mm-hmm.
The fact is 80+% of their students are not neurodiverse.
Okay.
Okay. So I want you to think
Mm-hmm.
back to when you were in school.
Mm-hmm.
Let's call it middle school through college. If
Okay.
you did two things, the
Uh-huh.
first thing is to study properly. You scheduled your study time efficiently. And number
Mm-hmm.
two, you worked really hard.
Mm-hmm.
If you did those two things, maybe not every class, because everybody has things we're not good at, but if
Mm-hmm.
you did those two things, you were successful to really successful academically. Does
Uh-huh.
it pretty much make sense?
Right.
Now let's apply that to a dyslexic. They
Okay.
could work twice, 3 times harder than you and come close to failing everything.
Uh-huh.
Why? Let's again look at the science.
Mm-hmm.
You see again how the back part of your brain has that massive neural activity?
Right.
I'm oversimplifying advanced neuroscience. That is
Okay.
essentially K through high school.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay.
The dyslexic has nothing going on.
Mm-hmm.
Our time doesn't come until grad school, where we have 2.5 times the neural activity.
Okay.
Okay. So, because our system teaches a lot of things, the
Mm-hmm.
dyslexic, like for example, when I teach this book, Walt Disney,
Mm-hmm.
I'm on this for 2 to 3 years, this one book.
Okay.
Okay. They start off at 10,
Uh-huh.
and by 12 or 13, they're reading a book for 17-year-olds. Parents are
Mm-hmm.
generally satisfied with that.
Right.
Okay. But the schools want us to do all these different books
Uh-huh.
exactly against how our brain works.
Mm-hmm.
Then the school teaches from the general to the specific.
Mm-hmm.
We want to go from the specific to the general.
Mm-hmm.
So those two things automatically set us up for failure. And then they say, we're going to accommodate you with some outdated neuroscience.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And then you wonder why we're not happy people.
Yeah. So
Okay.
definitely.
It's not that they're doing this on purpose. With a system that I gave you, you don't have to do that forever. It's until they reach grade level. Now,
Mm-hmm.
when Reed went back into school, he
Mm-hmm.
said, well, I don't want to do stuff that's not my specialty. I said, tough. I
Uh-huh.
told his parents, hold fast, be a rock. He complained. He didn't like it. And then he said, he was going nowhere. And he
Mm-hmm.
said, okay, I'll do it. And he's
Okay.
fine.
Okay.
There's been a few little things, but he's getting A's and B's and he's in gen ed classes.
Uh-huh.
So once you bring it to grade level or above, you can go
Mm-hmm.
back into that. But when they're below grade level, you have to focus on that model I gave you,
Mm-hmm.
or it's $75,000 a year for 4 to 5 years.
Wow.
And is there a way to avoid that?
Right.
Yes. This is going to drive you crazy.
Uh-huh.
This is from the Yale Center for Dyslexia and Creative Studies. This is the best
Mm-hmm.
book in my field. If
Okay.
schools would bother contacting Yale and say,
Mm-hmm.
how do we test for dyslexia in kindergarten?
Mm-hmm.
Here's how it's 50 bucks a kid. The teacher can do it. Now that you know the kid's dyslexic, how
Yeah.
do we fix this? Oh, here are all these courses, these federally funded intervention programs, like $1 million spent on each one. Pick what you like. And if you
Mm-hmm.
do that by the end of third grade, they're going to be at or close to reading at grade level.
Okay.
If they fail the third grade reading and writing test, it's an academic emergency. Because K through 3, we learn to read. Fourth and above, we read to learn. A federal judge, from being sued by the school district, has said, if you don't contact Yale or somebody like them, diagnose it in kindergarten and use that to appropriate things, you are not negligent, you are grossly negligent. And then they send them to a school like Woodward Academy at 4 to 5 years for $75,000 a year or more. And the school has to pay it. Or they could have done it cheaper at the beginning. If not, you can use my process for fourth and older, because with my process, the older the child is, the quicker they pick it up. The exact opposite. Why? Dr. Orton passed away in 1948, Gillingham in the 1950s. Hasn't changed a lot since then. This came out in 2003. That was 23 years ago. This is the modern science.
Wow.
That's how crazy my field is.
No, that's one thing that I'm wondering is just do you feel that educators or, folks just aren't aware? Because I could see them not being aware and pushing students towards more expensive approaches or, just not understanding how to best support. So, I don't know. I'm just wondering how can people just better support people who have dyslexia.
As I said, this is the number one book in my field. Go to Amazon. This is number one.
Okay.
This is the second version, page 78, figure 23. Simple. Back part of the brain, nothing's working. For you, it's crazy. Front part of my brain's 2.5 times overactive. Think about that. 2.5 times. Here's a weird idea. Do you follow basketball at all?
Very little.
Why don't we, you know who Michael Jordan is?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Why don't we give Michael Jordan a basketball instead of a hockey stick?
I don't know. Just because.
Okay. We need to focus on these kids. If you follow the system that I gave you.
Okay.
A homeschooling mom with a couple of semesters of college took her dyslexic son and taught him 7 times faster than the school district could in less than half the time, and solved this in 5.5 months. It took her about 36 hours. Okay? That's what every parent dreams of. These private schools have a student to teacher ratio of 4 to 1 to 5 to 1. And it took a bachelor's degree, 2 years of really hard training. And then they only hire the best and the most experienced, and they need them for 4 to 5 years to do the same thing. You see the utter craziness of it. Okay?
Yeah.
So literally, and especially so that first program, I had some students who scored in the 70th percentile of entering grad students when their pretest was the 7th grade level. You know what the professors told me when I went to them and said, here's the graduate records exam. I have a kid here who scored in the 70th percentile, above average. What do you think their reaction was?
Maybe disbelief?
No, we don't care.
Oh, wow.
We want the craft of research.
Oh, okay.
So that process that I told you, I met another podcaster son. I don't have permission now to tell to use his name, so I'm just going to call him Bob. Bob is 10 years old. He's not dyslexic at all. He's brilliant. He's in the 99th percentile in math and science. He wants to work at NASA. So he's not doing my first course. He's starting off with the basic essay course. He wanted to know about Mars. So I created with artificial intelligence. I used peer-reviewed resources, and I had a document created on the history of Mars at the PhD level. Then I lowered it to 9th grade understanding and advanced 6th grade reading, and I gave it to him. He was bored because it was so simplistic. So then I upped it to 9th grade reading, 12th grade comprehension, which is more his speed. He's 10. We're going through context, problem, solution. The same thing I teach dyslexics. And he's going to learn that so that he can, because I told him, if you want to work for NASA, you're going to have to publish as a PhD. Preferably, it'd be nice if you could publish as an undergrad.
Mm-hmm.
So you can get into the good PhD program and publish a few times there, and then you would be very highly considered for NASA.
Yeah.
The craft of research. So what I'm teaching dyslexics is now we're now testing it out on really advanced gen ed kids.
No, that's wonderful though for like a 10-year-old to like have those kind of ambitions though. That's really impressive and
Yes,
wonderful. Yeah.
he is brilliant.
Okay.
And so, but I'm just showing that without the college professors want you to be able to do the craft of research
Mm-hmm.
before you show up to your first day of college.
Oh, okay. Okay.
They expect it.
Mm-hmm.
And guess who that none
Mm-hmm.
of the best New York City private schools use the craft of research because it's too advanced.
Oh, wow.
And I start teaching
Wow.
it to elementary school kids.
Okay. Okay. What do you think can help people like just overcome that, just yeah, I guess misconception that it's too hard, like you can't learn that so young when you're clearly doing the work and showing that young people can learn this as well.
The basic thing is we got to focus on their speciality.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I have had like one of the kids I work with, I'm not joking, he's 13.
Okay.
He said he likes chemistry videos for his age group.
Oh,
I looked at the video that he sent me. This wasn't for a 13-year-old. I had the AI look it up.
okay.
It was for college juniors.
Wow.
His thing that he liked was how to turn, I'm not joking, how to turn paint thinner into cherry soda.
Oh, wow.
Okay. That's
Okay.
what he was really
Wow.
interested in.
That's
So I
cool.
customized it with the artificial intelligence. And then we used a program called Speechify, which was created by a dyslexic. Yes,
Okay.
it's $160 a year, but then you can pick your voice
Okay.
and it can read to you at your pace.
Mm-hmm.
Normally, I like to go with books and the best human narrators, but sometimes we have to do specialized stuff. Like for Bob, the 10th grade non-dyslexic super genius, I did. I didn't have to do anything with reading because he can read, but I custom created things on Mars.
Okay.
And he said, "Well, how do I know the data's good?" I said, "Well, all this is from peer-reviewed research journals, and I double-checked it, triple-checked it, had my assistant check it before I sent it to him."
Mm-hmm.
All right, so you can really do customized stuff with AI now if you know how to do it.
Okay, that's really cool. No, thank you for sharing all this. I love hearing all these stories that you have. And, something that I really want to do with this podcast is show my listeners, like, how can we really support one another and show up for one another? So, what would you say that, people listening to this episode can do to better support people with dyslexia?
Best thing I could do is, I said, I explained to you how the brain works.
Right.
I would just use that process.
Okay.
And work with them. If you want to know more details, you can contact me at dyslexiaclasses.com. That's with an S, with plural, dyslexiaclasses.com. There's a button there that says download free guide. Just click on it, answer 3 questions. You get a guide about how to overcome dyslexia. The most important thing is set up a time to speak with me directly. It's a free half hour, doesn't cost you anything. I find out what your kid's speciality is, find their book and their audiobook.
Okay, no, that's really cool.
And then we just go through, I mapped out, we literally use the craft of research. There is nothing, that is, I said, they sold over 1 million copies in the last 30 years. This is what the professors want. And I'll give you another hint.
Okay.
If you know the craft of research and you don't know a thing about AI, you are now an expert in AI. I had a kid, 2024, he graduates from college, hates AI, knows nothing about it. His boss loved it.
Okay.
He wanted to know if they could come up with anything that could help out the division. He said, "I don't know what to do." I said, "Listen, I trained you in craft of research. You practiced in college for 4 years." So I said, "Okay, go and do context. Talk to the AI. Type with it. I don't care." He comes back a couple days later. I did that. I said, "Go do your problem state." He comes back a few days later. "I hate this." I said, "Welcome to the adult world." Right?
Yeah.
And then I said, "Go do solution." He turns it in. His boss said, "Yeah, we've been having that problem for years. It was just never worth us fixing." And he had a solution. Within a couple of weeks, he was training his peers in AI. And he said, "Okay, here's how we do context. Then this is how I figured problem. This is what we do with solution." They're like, "What?" They're like, context problem solution. I'm like, we don't know what that is. He's like, what? Craft of research. I've been doing this since high school. They had no clue. He had to teach them the craft of research and how he did it. And so he was the AI guy.
Yeah.
And he says, I don't know a darn thing about AI. This is what I found worked and what didn't work. I just messed with it until I figured it out.
Yeah.
And I said, congratulations, that's what dyslexics do.
Oh, okay.
Now, just in the last month, we are moving from doing the work ourselves, assisted by AI, to having agents doing the work and we're reviewing it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the shift you need to move to now. And if you understand the craft of research, you can move with that and be very productive.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. And just lastly, as we're wrapping up, what gives you hope right now about the future of neurodiverse education?
Well, the main thing is people are beginning to understand what this is. I mean, my goodness, this book's only been out for, as I said, this is 23rd year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So people, when I go and I explain, part of the, this works, here's what it's word analysis followed by articulation, it's speciality followed by specific to the general. Then you do word analysis followed by articulation. They're beginning to understand. And because of the massive cost savings, people are beginning to learn about it. Okay. And honestly, what I tell parents is by the time you fight with the school district, you can just do it yourself. Right. And it's just easier. It's just easier showing them how to do it. Like, I don't have the time. I'm like, it's 10 to 15 minute sessions. Yeah. You do it a couple of times a week. Some weeks you do more. Some weeks you do nothing because you're on vacation for 2 weeks. You keep at it. And before you know it, within whatever amount of time, they're going through this. Why is this my most popular book? Because the kids love going to Disney World or Disneyland. Right. Parents used to say that's the reward once they learn to read. But now their costs have gone up a bit, so now it's kind of harder to do that.
No, it's ridiculous how expensive it is right now. Because I live close to Disney, and my daughter loves going there. But I'm like, oh, it's so expensive right now.
Oh yeah. It's what I do with most of them go to Disney World. I'll say. What you do is you stay at the Extended Stay America. Okay. Off season, it's about $60, $65 a night. You have a full kitchen. Okay. You don't eat out. Okay. All right. And you buy the 10-day tickets. Yeah. Okay. And then that lowers it to something within the realm of reality. And yes, you're going to be waiting in line, but if you spend 3 days at the Magic Kingdom, there's a book called The Unofficial Guide to Disney World. Okay. They can show you how to cut that down a lot. Okay. And if you do the 10 days, you can see everything. Yeah, no, that's cool. Well, thank you again for your time. I had such a wonderful time talking with you, and thank you for sharing all these, insights and wisdom. And I hope that listeners can walk away understanding a little bit better. I know definitely me, I learned a lot from you today. But just lastly, how can people find you if they'd like to connect with you? Easiest thing is just go to dyslexiaclasses.com, plural with an S, dyslexiaclasses.com. Okay. There's a button there that says download 3 guide, answer 3 questions, get your report, and set up a time to speak with me for a half an hour. It's no cost. Okay. And I work with you and your child. I ask 2 to 3 questions. And with that, they're like, oh, that's me. And I say, okay, let's pick out your book and your audiobook. Okay. And then that's what you use until they're at grade level or above. Okay, wonderful. Okay, well, thank you again. I wish you all the best. I think you're doing wonderful work, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. Thanks, you too. Okay, thank you. Thank you for being here and tuning in to Voices That Propel Us, stories of justice, action, and community. Your presence in this movement matters. If today's conversation moved you, share it, talk about it, and keep the work going. Together, we're not just imagining change, we're making it. Until next time, stay bold, stay grounded, and stay in the fight. Every time I feel so mad and sad and bad, I say to myself,